We all want to get better, right? We want to improve our lives. And what are we always told? The key is building better habits. But what if I told you that the entire way we think about habits is just fundamentally wrong? I'm sure you've heard this one. I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? On social media, in books, maybe from a friend who's really into self-improvement. It's kind of become this universally accepted fact of life. Because let's be real, if you've ever tried to start a new habit, like, say, hitting the gym every morning, and you quit after 3 weeks, you've probably felt that little sting of failure. Well, we're going to dig into why that feeling might be based on a complete and total myth. Okay, so first things first, let's pull back the curtain on this so-called magic number and see what the actual research has to say. Well, the science pretty much shatters the 21-day rule. Just look at this. For some people, yeah, a new habit can feel automatic in just 18 days. But for other people, it can take over 250 days. That's more than 8 months. So this idea of a single magic number, it just doesn't exist. So why the huge range? Well, it's because forming a habit isn't some simple formula you can just follow. It really depends on you, your personality. It depends on your life circumstances at the moment. And, of course, it depends on the habit itself. Trying to drink a glass of water every morning is a whole different ballgame than trying to learn to code for an hour every single day. And this, right here, is the real damage of that 21-day myth. When we don't magically succeed in that made-up time frame, this is the kind of stuff that starts running through our heads. We blame ourselves, we think we don't have enough willpower, when the truth is, we were just sold a bad number that was never designed for us in the first place. So, okay, the 21-day rule is not just wrong, it's actually a distraction from the real issue. It's not about how many days it takes. The real problem is our whole approach to the process. And here it is. This is the fundamental mistake almost all of us make. We're taught to focus on just one habit, all by itself. We decide, okay, I'm going to start meditating, and we pour every ounce of our energy into that one single thing, completely ignoring how it fits in with everything else we do. We try to add a new habit like it's a single brick we're just adding to a wall. But our life isn't a simple wall, is it? It's this complex, interconnected building. And trying to just jam a new brick in without thinking about the rest of the structure, well, that's just a recipe for disaster. And this brings us to a way more powerful way of thinking about this. Instead of focusing on individual bricks, we need to start thinking about the entire architecture of our lives. See, every single one of us already has a habit system. It's this unique collection of all your routines and behaviors, the good, the bad, all of them, that are already running your life on autopilot. From the moment you wake up, to what you grab for lunch, to how you chill out at night, it's all part of the system. Just think about it for a second. Your habit of staying up late, binge watching a show, is in a direct fight with your goal of waking up early to work out, right? But on the other hand, your habit of prepping your lunches on Sunday, that totally supports your goal of eating healthier all week. They're all connected, always talking to each other. So if our habits are a system, then we have to stop acting like bricklayers, just slapping on one new habit at a time. We need to start thinking like architects. And that shift in mindset, it changes everything. So the old way is all about forcing one new thing into your life. The new approach, the architect's approach, is about stepping back. It's about looking at your entire network of habits and redesigning how they all work together. You start asking questions like, what existing routine can I piggyback this new habit onto? Or even, what habit do I actually need to get rid of to make room for this new one? It's a total redesign, not just an addition. This completely changes the fundamental question you ask yourself. It's no longer this narrow, frustrating little question about building one habit. It becomes this big, expansive, creative question about system design. How can my habit of reading before bed also help my goal of less screen time? How can I tweak my morning coffee routine to include 5 minutes of just planning my day? And when you adopt this mindset, you start to realize this isn't just about adding a new to-do item to your list. You are consciously, intentionally designing the very system that runs your daily life. It is such a more powerful and honestly more sustainable way to create change that actually lasts. So really, the question to ask yourself is this. Are you going to keep trying to jam individual bricks into a wall that might just crumble? Or are you ready to step back, grab the blueprints, and start designing the life you actually want to live? The choice is yours.
we're going to break down the incredible framework from neuroscientist Andrew Huberman on how to understand and, this is the important part, how to actually change the behaviors that pretty much run our lives. So, let's start with a question that I think we've all wrestled with at some point. Why is changing so darn hard? Why does mindlessly scrolling on your phone feel completely automatic, but dragging yourself to the gym feels like you're trying to move a mountain? Why do we feel kind of trapped by our own routines? Well, Huberman's central idea here is a total game changer. He basically says, look, this isn't a personality flaw. It's not about you being lazy or lacking willpower. It's just about the physical, literal wiring in your brain. And the best part? That wiring isn't permanent. You can change it. Okay, so if we're going to change that wiring, we first have to understand what it even is. So let's get into what a habit actually looks like inside your brain. It all boils down to this amazing concept called neuroplasticity. And this isn't just some abstract idea. It means your brain is physically reshaping itself all the time. Every single time you repeat an action, you are strengthening a neural connection. It's like walking the same path through a forest over and over. Eventually, you carve out a super clear, easy-to-follow road. And why on earth does the brain do this? Well, it's all about being efficient. Your brain is a master at saving energy. Anytime it can take a task that requires conscious thought and turn it into an automatic process, it saves a ton of mental fuel. So really, a habit is just your brain flipping on the autopilot switch.
And this, right here, is such an empowering way to think about it. It means you're not stuck being the person who always hits snooze. You are simply a collection of these well-worn neural pathways. And the good news is, you can always start carving new ones.
Okay, so that all sounds good in theory. But if it's just about building new pathways, why does it feel so incredibly hard to start? Well, Huberman actually gives a name to that feeling of resistance. He calls it limbic friction. And you know this feeling. It's that heavy sensation you get when you just think about putting on your running shoes. It's that internal debate you have with yourself before you start that tough project. That mental drag. That is limbic friction. And you can see this play out everywhere in your life. A brand new habit, something like meditating for the first time, has super high limbic friction. It takes a ton of willpower. You have to argue with yourself, and it's exhausting. But an old habit, like grabbing your phone the second you're bored, that has basically zero limbic friction. It just happens. No effort needed. The difference is just massive. Just picture it. The internal resistance to scrolling your phone at night is practically zero. It's a smooth, downhill ride. Now, compare that to the resistance for going to the gym when you're not in the mood. That's a steep, uphill climb you have to conquer every single time. So this really clarifies the goal, doesn't it? Building a good habit isn't about having some superhuman level of willpower. The real mission is to systematically lower that limbic friction day by day until that good habit feels just as easy and automatic as the ones you already have.
So now that we've identified the enemy, limbic friction, how do we actually start to fight it? Well, Huberman says don't just start anywhere. Start by looking for a kind of master switch.
And he calls these linchpin habits. The idea here is that not all habits are created equal. Linchpin habits are the big ones, the foundational ones, that once you get them locked in, they create this amazing ripple effect. They just naturally pull other good habits into your life.
So what does one look like? Well, a linchpin habit is usually something you actually kind of enjoy, not just another chore on your to-do list. And when you do it, other things just seem to fall into line. Maybe it's a morning walk. Suddenly you're sleeping better, which makes you more focused at work, which means you make better food choices, and all of a sudden you don't feel the need to just zone out in front of the TV all night. The metaphor is just perfect, isn't it? Instead of running around the house trying to turn on every single light one by one, you're looking for that main breaker switch that just powers up the whole system at once. Okay, so we've got the theory. Now for the practice. How do we find these linchpin habits? Huberman lays out this really practical, low-pressure experiment to figure out what actually works for your nervous system. Now, he talks about the number 21, and it's so important to get this right. This is not that old myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit. No. Think of this as a 21-day science experiment on yourself. It's just a data-gathering mission. Here's how it works. Step 1. Pick about 6 habits you'd like to build. Step 2. Don't pressure yourself to be perfect. Just aim to get 4 or 5 of them done each day. You do this for 21 days. Then, and this is the most critical part, you stop forcing it. You just let go and you observe. Which habits have started to feel kind of natural, and which ones vanished the moment you stopped trying so hard? The results tell you what your brain is actually ready to adopt right now. All right, now we're going to zoom out, because up to this point, we've kind of been talking about habits one at a time, but we all know that's not really how life works, is it?
And this is the idea that ties it all together. No single habit, good or bad, exists on its own island. They're all connected in this huge interlocking system. Think of it like your brain is running a whole operating system. And on that system, you've got the Go to the Gym program running. But right next to it, you've also got the Binge Watch Netflix program. You have the Eat a Healthy Lunch program right alongside the Stress Eat Cookies program. They are all running at the same time, and they all affect each other. So really, this is the final question Huberman's work makes us ask ourselves. It's not about just adding one good habit or killing one bad one. It's about understanding the whole ecosystem. How does staying up late binge-watching a show impact your energy to get to the gym? How does avoiding that one tough email trigger the urge to stress eat? The real work and the real opportunity is figuring out how all these different programs are running and interacting inside the amazing, complex operating system that is you.
It's Sunday night, you're filled with this burst of motivation. You tell yourself, this is it, I'm finally going to go to the gym or read more or meditate. And then Wednesday rolls around and it's like that motivation just vanished into thin air. So why? Why does this keep happening over and over again? Well, the usual story we tell ourselves is that we just didn't want it badly enough, that we failed because we lacked discipline or character. We blame our willpower. And honestly, it feels like a moral failing, doesn't it? But here's a radical thought. What if that entire way of thinking is the actual reason we keep failing? What if this has almost nothing to do with willpower at all? So for the next few minutes, let's just throw out words like good, bad, lazy, or disciplined. We're going to put on a totally different hat. Let's analyze this whole problem not as a personal failure, but as a technical issue. It's time to think like a system engineer. And this brings us to the most important concept for understanding all of this, something we'll call your personal habit bandwidth. Think of your habit bandwidth like the RAM in your computer or the data plan on your phone. It's your total daily capacity for everything, your time, your physical energy, your mental focus, and yes, your willpower too. But the most crucial part is this: it is a finite resource. You only get so much each day. To make this really concrete, let's just put a number on it. Imagine that every single morning, you wake up with exactly 100 units of this bandwidth to spend. That's your budget for the day. No more, no less. But here's the catch, and it's the part most of us completely miss. That budget is already mostly spent before you've even had your coffee. Your life isn't an empty hard drive just waiting for new software. It's a system that's already running at near full capacity. I mean, just think about your average day. You've got your job, taking care of your family, running errands, commuting, cooking, cleaning, plus all the habits you already have, the good and the bad. They are all constantly drawing from your bandwidth. So for most of us, this existing load is already eating up about 85 of our 100 units, leaving behind very little free space. And this right here is exactly where the system error happens. This is the point where our good intentions collide head-on with the hard math of reality. So, you're feeling motivated and you decide, I'm going to start a fantastic new habit. Let's use the classic example, deciding to go to the gym every day. Now, a habit like going to the gym doesn't just cost you an hour of time. It costs energy to get there and actually work out. It costs focus to push yourself. It costs willpower to choose the gym over the comfy sofa. So all in, let's say this new habit has a real cost of 30 bandwidth units. And here it is. This is the crash. Your existing life already demands 85 units. Your new gym habit demands another 30. You do the math. 85 plus 30 is 115 units. But remember, your total capacity is only 100. It is a mathematical impossibility. Your system is now in total overload. So what happens when any system gets overloaded? It doesn't just slow down a little bit. It starts automatically shutting things down to save itself. See, your brain doesn't give you a friendly warning that says, hey, you're trying to do too many things at once, maybe choose one? No way. It acts just like an overloaded computer. It starts force-quitting applications, and it always starts with the weakest ones. This crash sequence is automatic, and it's completely predictable. First, the system hits overload. Then it automatically prioritizes the essential, deep-rooted things it needs to survive. And finally, it just shuts down anything that's new and fragile. So what's the weakest, most fragile process running on your system? You guessed it, your brand new gym habit. It has no deep roots. It isn't essential for survival yet. Meanwhile, that old habit of scrolling on your phone, which is deeply ingrained, that one stays right where it is. The new habit is always the first casualty of a system overload. Okay, so if this is a system problem, then what we need is a system solution. It's time to stop just trying harder and start thinking smarter. It's time to think like an engineer. A system engineer would never ever look at a machine running at 85% capacity and just try to shove 30% more work into it. That is a guaranteed crash. So the question we always ask ourselves, how can I add more good habits, is fundamentally the wrong question to be asking. An engineer asks entirely different questions. First, what's my actual realistic bandwidth? Second, what's currently running that's just draining my resources for very little value? And most importantly, if I want to install this new, awesome habit, what old habit am I going to remove to make space for it? So, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Failing to build a new habit is not a sign that you're lazy or undisciplined. It's a sign that you have a resource allocation problem. You've been trying to solve an engineering challenge with morality, and that approach never, ever works. So stop asking how you can cram more in. Instead, I want you to look at your own system. Look at your 100 units and ask the real engineer's question, what process in your life will you shut down to finally make room for what truly matters? You ever feel stuck? You know, like you're running on a hamster wheel, trying to build good habits, but you end the day feeling stressed, undisciplined, and somehow right back where you started? We're going to talk about a powerful concept that might just change the entire way you look at your daily routine. So, does this hit a little too close to home? That feeling of déjà vu, where yesterday's struggles just seem to melt right into today's? It's an incredibly common feeling, and believe it or not, it often follows a very, very predictable pattern. So let's walk through what we're going to call the vicious daily cycle. It's a pattern that honestly millions of us fall into, and it's so hard to escape unless you really truly understand how it works, from the inside out. Okay, picture this. It all starts around 11 p.m. You tell yourself, all right, just 15 more minutes on my phone. But we've all been there, right? That turns into an hour easy. Before you know it, it's 1 a.m., and you finally drift off into this late, kind of shallow sleep. The next morning, it's brutal. At 7 a.m., you are exhausted. You're hitting that snooze button over and over until you have no choice but to rush out the door, probably skipping a decent breakfast. Then, around 1 p.m., that sleep debt catches up and bam, the afternoon energy crash hits you like a ton of bricks. So what do? You grab a quick fix, right? A sugary snack, another coffee. That gets you through the afternoon, but by 8 p.m., you're just left feeling stressed, feeling undisciplined about the whole day. And to escape that feeling, you reach for your phone again. And just like that, the cycle is ready to repeat. Now, you might look at that timeline and see a checklist of separate bad habits. You probably think, I just need more willpower to put my phone down, or I've got to force myself to wake up earlier. But what if that's the completely wrong way to look at it? What if, instead of a list of individual failures, this is actually a perfectly designed system? I mean, a system where each action isn't just a result of the one before it, but it's also the perfect setup for the very next one. It's a closed loop. This whole interconnected system, it has a name, and understanding this name is the absolute key to breaking free. It's called habit debt. So what is habit debt? Think of it like this. Every small compromise, every "I'll deal with it tomorrow," is like taking out a small loan against your future self. You're borrowing energy and willpower. And just like financial debt, it comes with compounding interest, which makes it harder and harder to build any good habits down the line. I mean, just think about how often we say that, just this once. It feels so harmless in the moment, doesn't it? But it's not. It's a small loan you're taking out from tomorrow's energy, from tomorrow's focus, from tomorrow's motivation. And those small loans, they add up. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and before you even know it, you're buried under this invisible debt that's secretly controlling your entire day. To make this even clearer, let's borrow an idea from a completely different field, software development. Let's talk about the cost of using patches. Okay, so in the coding world, there's this concept called technical debt. It's a perfect mirror for our lives. See, a developer might use a quick, messy patch to fix a problem right now. And in life, we do the exact same thing with our quick fixes, right? The sugar, the caffeine to just get through the day. The problem is, over time, a system that's full of these patches becomes incredibly fragile. It breaks easily. For us, a life full of these quick fixes becomes fragile and super prone to stress. It's why a tiny setback, like a little traffic jam or one stressful email, can completely derail your entire day. The end result is that your life's operating system just becomes incredibly fragile. You're constantly just one minor crisis away from a total system crash. So, if we're stuck in this fragile system, how in the world do we get out? Well, the solution doesn't start with more effort. It starts by asking a much, much better question. This is the kind of question we usually ask, right? We focus on the thing we want, like going to the gym, and we try to use brute force and sheer willpower to make it happen. But that's the wrong question. It's like trying to fix a crashing computer program by just hitting the run button harder and harder. It only addresses a symptom, not exercising, instead of the underlying broken system. The reason you don't have energy for the gym is because you're already deep in habit debt from the night before. So here's a much better question. Instead of trying to force a new habit on top of a broken system, what is the single root link in this entire chain? Let me put it another way. If I fix just one of these links, how many other problems will start to solve themselves as a natural side effect? This totally shifts your focus from adding more effort to finding the one spot where you have the most leverage. And that brings us to the final and honestly the most important part, how to actually find your root cause. The very first thing you need to realize is that the root cause, the root debt, is almost never what you think it is. It's hardly ever a simple lack of motivation. That's just a symptom. The real issue is usually hiding somewhere much earlier in your day. So what could it be? Well, there are a few common culprits. It could be how you use screens right before bed. It could be your automatic knee-jerk reaction to stress. Do you face it, or do you try to numb it? Or it could be the very structure of your daily schedule, which might be setting you up for failure before you even start. And here's the really powerful part. You don't have to fix everything all at once. You just have to find that one root cause. Because if you change the root, the entire negative structure that's built on top of it can just collapse on its own. Fix your sleep, and you might just find you have the energy to exercise without even trying. So, I'll leave you with this question. Look back at your own daily cycle, and don't think about adding some new big habit. Instead, just ask yourself, what is the one link in that chain, that single point of debt, that if you changed it tomorrow would make everything else just a little bit easier?
Let's talk about motivation, or, more likely, the lack of it. It's something we all struggle with. But what if I told you that the whole way we think about motivation is just wrong? We're going to pull back the curtain on what's really going on in your head. And trust me, you are not going to see it the same way ever again.
I mean, come on. How many times have you said this to yourself? You know you should hit the gym, or start that big project, or make that tough phone call. You know it's the right move. But you just don't. Something holds you back. This feeling, this exact phrase, is where so much of our frustration starts.
And here's the first big idea. Saying I have no motivation isn't really an explanation for anything. It's just a label we stick on a feeling. It doesn't actually tell us what's happening. It's like looking at a car that won't start and just saying, well, it's broken. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't help you fix it, right? To fix it, you need to look under the hood and understand the mechanism.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to lift the hood on your brain. And I want you to try on a new way of thinking. Stop imagining your brain as one single you. Instead, picture it like a bustling parliament, a legislature filled with competing groups, all shouting and trying to get their votes heard.
Every single thing you do, from hitting the snooze button in the morning to deciding what to eat for lunch, is basically the outcome of an election inside your head. Every action you take is like a bill that just got passed into law because one party got the majority of the votes in that exact moment.
Okay, so if your brain is a parliament, who are the political parties? Well, for our purposes, we're going to focus on three major factions. You got to get to know them because each one has its own agenda and its own way of voting.
First up, we've got the big one. This is often the most powerful party in the room, the pain avoidance faction. Now, this group is run by the oldest, most ancient parts of your brain, the bits that handle fear, embarrassment, physical discomfort. Its entire mission is incredibly simple. Keep you safe and comfortable right this second.
Just look at what this faction cares about. It's all about the immediate present. It couldn't care less about your 5-year plan or your New Year's resolutions. It votes for what feels easy, what feels familiar, and what feels safe right now. This is the little voice that's always whispering, hey, why don't we just take the easy way out?
And here's how it sounds in your head. Thinking about going to that networking event? This faction starts screaming, what if you say something stupid? There are too many people. Let's just stay home and watch Netflix. The couch is safe. It sees any possible discomfort, physical or social, as a huge threat to be avoided at all costs.
But it's not the only voice, right? Let's meet the second faction. This is the long-term faction. You can think of this as being run by your prefrontal cortex, the more modern, rational part of your brain. This is the part of you that actually holds your dreams, your big goals, and your vision for who you want to become.
See, this faction is the planner, the architect of your future. It completely understands that to build anything worthwhile, you have to put up with some discomfort now for a payoff later. This is the part of you that signs up for a difficult class or starts a savings plan, knowing the process might suck a little, but the end result will be totally worth it.
And its vote sounds very different. While the pain avoidance faction is yelling about how uncomfortable today is going to be, the long-term faction calmly steps up to the microphone and says, yeah, but what about the pain of staying exactly where we are? If we don't do this, we'll be in the exact same spot in 5 years. It argues that the real pain is stagnation.
And finally, there's a third, often overlooked member of this parliament, the body faction. Now this one's a little different. It's not really a political party with an agenda. It's more like an independent commission that just reports the facts on the ground.
The body faction only deals in hard data. How many hours did you actually sleep last night? Are you getting sick? Is your back hurting? And here is the absolute key. When you are physically wiped out, this faction just abstains. It doesn't cast a vote at all, and that silence can completely change the outcome of the election.
So, we've met the players, now let's see them in action. Let's watch an election that happens in millions of brains every single morning. The bill on the floor today is, should we get up and go to the gym?
So here's the vote count. The pain avoidance faction comes out swinging, casting 100 votes for no way. Its arguments? The bed is so warm. We're tired. It's cold out there. Meanwhile, the long-term faction makes a decent case for future health and energy, but it can only rustle up about 30 votes. And the body faction? Well, you only got 4 hours of sleep last night, so it's exhausted. It abstains. It casts 0 votes. The final tally, 100 to 30. The bill is crushed. You stay in bed.
And there you have it. That feeling of I have no motivation wasn't some mysterious fog that rolled in. It was the clear, predictable, mathematical result of an election that was completely rigged from the start. The pain avoidance faction won in a total landslide. Now, just understanding this is a huge step. But here is where it gets really powerful. Once you see it as a system, you realize you can start to influence that system. You can go from being a victim of these elections to being the lead political strategist for your own mind.
This shift in questioning changes everything. The old question, how can I feel more motivated, is so passive. It's basically you just sitting around waiting for a magical feeling to show up. But the new question, is active. It's strategic. It turns you from a bystander into an agent who can actually rig the election in your favor.
So, how do you do it? Well, any good political campaign has 3 main parts, right? First, you've got to weaken your opponent. Second, you rally your base and strengthen your allies. And third, if you're really smart, you figure out a way to change the very rules of the game.
So, to weaken the pain avoidance faction, you take away its talking points. If it's screaming that a 45-minute workout is way too hard, you counter-propose a simple 5-minute walk. All of a sudden, the perceived pain plummets, and so do its votes. If it's worried about being embarrassed at the gym, okay, fine, go when it's nearly empty. You're systematically taking away all of its best arguments.
Next up, you've got to empower your ally, the long-term faction. Vague goals like, I want to get healthy, are weak. They don't get a lot of votes. But a super specific, emotional reason like, I want to be strong enough to pick up my kid in 5 years without worrying about my back, now that is a powerful voting block. Committing to things, like paying for a class ahead of time, is like casting an early vote for your future self. It locks it in.
And this is the master move. This is how you change the rules of the whole game.
The pain avoidance faction's #1 weapon is the feeling of discomfort. But what if you changed what that feeling means? Instead of seeing the burn in your muscles as a sign of weakness and a reason to stop, you reframe it as proof of progress. That discomfort is literally the feeling of your brain and body rewiring themselves to become stronger. You've just taken their biggest weapon and turned it into your own.
So let's bring this all home. The single most important idea to take away from all of this is about your role in it. You are not just a citizen who has to live with the results of these elections. You are the architect. You are the one who designs the entire system. In the end, motivation isn't some magical lightning bolt of inspiration that comes down from the sky. It's none of that. It is simply the output of a mechanism inside your head. And the beautiful thing about a mechanism is that it can be understood, it can be tinkered with, and it can be completely redesigned to get you the results you want. So I'll leave you with a question. Think about that one thing in your life where you feel you lack motivation. That one recurring election that the pain avoidance faction just keeps winning day after day. Now that you know how the game is played, which of your internal elections are you going to redesign first?
You know how it is. You get this huge surge of inspiration, right? You decide, this is it. I'm going to build a new habit. Maybe it's hitting the gym, learning an instrument, meditating. You start off super strong. But then, a week or two later, it kind of fizzles out. Well, what if I told you that those moments of failure aren't random at all? They are totally predictable. We're going to look at the map to navigate right through them. We've all heard this magic number, haven't we? 21. The advice is everywhere. Just do something for 21 days straight and boom, a new habit is locked in. Sounds simple enough. But here's the big question. Is that 21-day rule really the golden ticket we think it is? Is it some kind of guarantee? Well, the short answer is not really. See, the truth is, that number isn't a promise. It's actually a pretty big misunderstanding of how our brains form habits. The real journey isn't a race to some magic number. Nope. It's about successfully navigating a few very specific and predictable danger zones. So let's get past that myth and dive into what the timeline for a new habit actually looks like. Think of it less like a sprint to a finish line and more like a journey through a challenging but totally navigable landscape. So, your first major challenge, the first gauntlet you've got to run, it comes up way faster than you might think. Welcome to what I call the deadly week. Okay, what's so fascinating here is how perfectly this captures that initial roller coaster. The first few days are amazing, right? You're riding this incredible wave of novelty and excitement. But then, look what happens around day 4. That bright green suddenly flips to red, the fun part's over, and that's when the friction and the doubt really start to creep in. And this is exactly what's happening inside your head. You go from that new me, this is awesome, excitement, to that sinking feeling of, wow, this is hard. Your motivation, which was sky high, suddenly feels like it's completely bottomed out. The initial buzz is gone, you haven't seen any real benefits yet, and your brain starts asking this very simple, very dangerous question. Is this even worth it? Now, the key to surviving this first week isn't about willpower. It's not about gritting your teeth. It's about protecting a fragile new ceiling. Your whole strategy is to lower the bar so low it feels ridiculous. You want to run a 5K? Great. Your goal for today is just to put on your running shoes. That's it. You want to write a novel? Your goal is 1 sentence. You have to prioritize that amazing feeling of I did it over trying to do it perfectly. In this first phase, just showing up is the only victory that matters. Okay, so you survived the first week. Awesome. High five. But don't get too comfortable, because you are about to walk into the second danger zone, a really deceptive quiet period called the latent valley. Around weeks 3 and 4, you're putting in a ton of effort. I mean, you're being consistent, you're doing the work day after day. But when you look for the payoff, the visible results are just frustratingly low. Sometimes they're not there at all. And this feeling leads to the single thought that has probably killed more new habits than anything else. All this effort for nothing? It seriously feels like you're just spinning your wheels. And this is the exact moment so many people decide to throw in the towel. But wait, look at this. This shows you what's really going on. That flat line, that plateau where you feel so stuck, that's you, right there. You're not failing. You're just in the natural delay before the results pop. Quitting now means you're abandoning the journey right at the moment the curve is about to shoot straight up. And that brings us to our third and final danger zone. Now, this one's a little different. It's not about intense friction. It's about a premature sense of, hey, I got this. This is the 6-week milestone, and it's a critical moment to really evaluate things before you declare victory. So forget 21 days. Seriously, if you need a solid number to aim for as a real checkpoint, make it 6 weeks. This is a much more realistic, much more meaningful time frame to see if a habit is actually starting to take hold. So why 6 weeks? Well, it's long enough for your brain to have tested this new behavior out in the wild, under real-life conditions. When you're tired, you're busy, you're happy, you're sad. It's also long enough for you to feel a real tangible decrease in that mental friction, where the action starts to shift from being a chore to something that feels, well, automatic. So at that 6-week mark, it's time for a quick, honest check-in. Just ask yourself 2 simple questions. First, has that mental friction, that feeling of having to force yourself, has it gone down? And second, when you miss a day, because it happens, is it way easier to get right back on track? Your answers to these questions will tell you everything you need to know about how deep those roots have grown. So let's put this all together. Instead of seeing habit formation as this series of random, frustrating struggles, you can now see it for what it truly is, a predictable map that you can actually navigate. And here it is, your journey map. First up, you have the red zone of the deadly week, where your only goal is to survive. Then you enter the yellow zone, the latent valley, where your main challenge is just to trust the process. And finally, you hit the green zone, at that 6-week checkpoint where you can finally confirm you're on stable ground. Knowing where these failure points are changes everything. They aren't signs that you're weak or that you're failing. They are just landmarks on the path to success. So the only real question left is, now that you have the map, which journey are you going to begin? Have you ever felt like you're just stuck on a hamster wheel, trying to build good habits only to watch them completely fall apart a week later? Yeah, I think we've all been there. We're going to ditch that old, broken approach for good. Instead of just trying to cram another task onto your to-do list, we're going to learn how to completely redesign the entire system that drives your daily actions. So let's be real, this is the question we all ask ourselves, right? Okay, what new habit should I add? Maybe it's meditating, or hitting the gym, or reading more. But here's the thing, and it's kind of counterintuitive. Starting with this question might be the very reason we keep failing. So instead of that, what if we ask this question instead? How is my current habit ecosystem actually operating? Just that simple shift in perspective, it changes everything. It moves us from trying to build a new house on a shaky foundation to first understanding the blueprint of our life as it is right now. It's really the difference between just patching a leak and completely re-engineering the plumbing. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through this 4-step diagnostic process to become the architects of our own habits. First, we'll map out our current reality. Then, we find the key leverage points for change. After that, we learn how to engineer our environment for success. And finally, we'll pull it all together with a super practical 6-week plan. So this is the core idea, the big shift. We've got to move from what's called additive thinking to systems thinking. See, your habits aren't just a random list of tasks. They're all connected. They're an ecosystem. Think of it like a huge, intricate domino rally. One action inevitably knocks over the next, and the next, and the next. Understanding that chain reaction is the first, and honestly, the most critical step to making any real, lasting change. So that brings us to our very first actionable step, mapping your day. We're going to create something called a habit graph. Now, the most important rule here, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. We're mapping a real, typical day, not the perfect, idealized version you wish you had. So, how do we actually build this map? It's way simpler than it sounds. Every single recurring behavior in your day is what we'll call a node. Waking up, that's a node. Immediately grabbing your phone to check emails, yep, that's a node. That first glorious sip of coffee, you guessed it, another node. Or basically creating a visual inventory of all your daily actions, no matter how tiny they seem. Okay, so once you have your list of nodes, you ask this single most important question. What triggers what? Does the alarm going off immediately trigger you reaching for your phone? Does finishing dinner automatically lead to turning on the TV? As you start drawing lines and connecting these nodes, these invisible scripts that run your life suddenly become crystal clear right there on the page. And this is where the magic really starts to happen. As you look at your map, it's going to reveal two super critical things. The loops you're stuck in, like that endless social media scroll cycle, and the energy leaks, those little habits that seem harmless but totally drain your willpower for the rest of the day. Maybe it's that 3 p.m. sugar craving that just tanks your productivity. You'll see it all. All right, now that we have our map, we can move on to step 2, finding the key points of leverage. Look, the goal here is not to overhaul your entire life overnight. That is just a recipe for burnout. Instead, we're looking for the acupuncture points, those few small changes that will create the biggest, most positive ripple effects throughout your entire system. This brings us to a really powerful concept called root debt. This is the one negative habit that's like an anchor, holding everything else down. For so many of us, it's poor sleep. I mean, think about it. When you fix your sleep, you're not just fixing one thing. You suddenly have more energy, you make better food choices, your stress levels drop. You're treating the cause, not just the symptoms. Now, on the flip side, we have the linchpin habit. This is not a daily grind. This is a powerful, positive action that you might only do once or twice a week, but it sets a positive tone for the entire week. It's like a stabilizing anchor. Think of that Sunday morning long run that just clears your head for days, or a super focused writing session that fuels your creativity all week long. And now for your secret weapon, gateway habits. These are the tiny, almost ridiculously easy wins that rebuild your momentum and, maybe more importantly, your belief in yourself. I mean, no, making your bed isn't going to change your life on its own, but it starts your day with a completed task, an act of accomplishment. It proves to your brain that, hey, I'm someone who follows through. So here's the main takeaway for this step. Be a strategist, not a hero. Your goal is precision, not some brute force attack on all your bad habits at once. Look at your nap and identify just one root debt to work on, pick one linchpin habit to build, and implement just one or two of those gateway habits to build momentum. Seriously, in the world of habits, focus is your superpower. Okay, so with our strategic targets identified, we move to step 3, engineering the system. It's not enough to just know what we want to change. We have to become architects of our own environment. We need to design a world that makes good habits the easy choice, and the bad habits, well, they become the difficult ones. So here's a fundamental truth about human behavior, about your brain. It's kind of lazy. It doesn't choose the best option. It almost always chooses the easiest one. And we can totally use this to our advantage. We increase the cost of bad habits by adding friction, like putting your phone in another room at night. And at the same time, we decrease the cost of good habits by removing friction, like laying out your workout clothes the night before. Now, the other side of this engineering coin is building an alternative response. Look, we can't just eliminate triggers like stress or boredom. They're part of life, right? But what we can do is change our reaction to them. So when you feel that wave of stress coming on, instead of instinctively reaching for your phone to scroll, you consciously choose a new routine, taking 10 deep breaths. You are literally carving a new neural pathway in your brain. And it is so crucial to understand this. That old path through the woods, it never completely disappears. But every single time you choose to walk the new path, you're clearing away the brush, you're making it wider, smoother, and just easier to follow. And eventually, it becomes the default route. It becomes the new path of least resistance. And that brings us to the final and most crucial piece of this whole puzzle, the 6-week plan. It is time to officially bust the myth of the 21-day fix. Real, lasting change, it just doesn't work on some magic schedule. It requires a realistic timeline and a really smart strategy. So here's how you roll it out. The first few days are just about getting a taste of victory, no matter how small. Week 1 is all about protecting the new habit, like a delicate little seedling. Don't push it too hard. Then, for the next couple of weeks, your only metric for success is consistency. Did you show up? That's a win. And most importantly, when you hit the valley of despair, and trust me, you will, you have to recognize it for what it is. It's a sign you're making progress, not a reason to quit. And after you've given it a dedicated 6-week trial, you've earned the right to ask the big questions. Does this habit actually serve me? Does it fit with the life I really want to live? This whole process isn't about forcing yourself to do something you hate. It's about becoming the thoughtful designer of a life where the right behaviors start to feel natural, almost effortless. So, what's the first node you're going to map out today? One that swaps out pure willpower for something much more powerful, architecture. Okay, so it always starts with the absolute best of intentions. You decide, this is it. I'm going to meditate every single morning. Or I'm hitting the gym 3 times a week, no excuses. Or, I'm finally going to learn that new language. You're motivated. You are so ready. But then life happens. A week, maybe 2 weeks later, that motivation just evaporates. And the new habit, it just kind of fizzles out. It is such a frustrating cycle, and we've all been there. But what if the problem isn't the habit? What if it's not even you? Yeah. What if the entire way we approach self-improvement is actually based on a totally flawed idea from the very start? And this, right here, this is the heart of the problem. We treat our lives like some simple computer script. We think we can just pop in a new line of code, a new habit, and boom, it'll just run perfectly. But come on, life is so much more complicated than that. So if your life isn't just a simple script you can edit, what is it? Well, there's a much, much better metaphor we can use. I mean, think about it. Your life has a core architecture, right? These are your fundamental beliefs, your values. It's got resource allocation, that's your time, your energy, your focus. And crucially, it is jam-packed with hidden processes running in the background all the time. So to make any real, lasting change, you can't just edit one line of code. You have to understand the entire operating system. Okay, so if we're going to upgrade our system, the very first step is to run a diagnostic. It's time to pop the hood and see what's really going on in there. And when we run this diagnostic, we almost always find 3 major things chugging along. These hidden processes we totally forgot about, the junk processes that are just draining our battery, and of course, the new apps, our new habits, that just keep crashing. So these background processes, these are the automatic scripts that are secretly calling the shots. Maybe it's that belief you installed ages ago that you're just not a morning person, or that split-second reaction to grab your phone the moment you feel a tiny bit of boredom. You set them up years ago, and now they just run on autopilot, shaping your entire day without you even realizing it. Then you've got the junk processes. Oh yeah, these are the habits you know about, the ones you see, but you just can't seem to quit. That endless doom scroll on social media, putting off that big project again, ordering takeout instead of cooking the healthy food you literally just bought. They are total resource hogs, eating up your most precious assets, your time and your mental energy, basically just because, well, that's what they've always done. And this chart just illustrates the problem perfectly. When you actually stop and look at how your system's resources are being spent, you might find something shocking. That junk process, mindless scrolling, could be eating up 60% of your processing power. That leaves barely anything left for the stuff you actually want to do. And this is where it all clicks into place. This completely reframes failure. Your new gym habit, that new app you tried to install, it isn't crashing because it's a bad app or because you don't have enough willpower. No, it's crashing because you're trying to install it on an operating system that is already overloaded with junk and running on ancient, outdated background processes. There are literally no system resources left to run it. All right, so now that we've diagnosed the mess, let's install some critical mindset upgrades. And these aren't about just trying harder or adding more habits. This is about changing the way the system itself actually thinks. So upgrade number 1 is a huge shift in the question you ask yourself. Instead of immediately jumping to, what new habit can I tack on? You stop and you take inventory first. You ask, how is my entire ecosystem of habits, the good, the bad, all of them, how are they interacting right now? What is the whole system doing? Now, this second upgrade is so empowering. Please stop blaming yourself for a lack of motivation. Instead, think of your mind like an internal democracy where the rules of the election are, well, they're rigged. Your job isn't to try harder to win a rigged vote. Your job is to become the commissioner and rewrite the election rules. You can make the good choice, the easy choice, the obvious choice. And the final shift here is moving from destruction to construction. Trying to just brute force obliterate a bad habit is absolutely exhausting. That old neural pathway, it's always going to be there. So your energy is way better spent building a new, shiny, super efficient highway right next to it. You make the new habit so much better, so much more rewarding, that the old dirt road just gets abandoned and overgrown from neglect. And that's the crucial takeaway. Thinking like a system architect isn't about some 21-day challenge or a sudden burst of motivation. It's about doing the real work of redesigning the very foundation your life is built on. It's slower, for sure, but it's so much deeper. So, if you only take one single thing away from this entire explainer, let it be this one question. This is the question that every good system architect has to ask themselves. Just let that sink in. What goal, what habit, what way of being you want for yourself does your current life, your current operating system, make nearly impossible to achieve? Answering that question, that is the true starting point. Because real change doesn't start by adding one more thing, it starts by redesigning the very system that's holding you back.